In the vast, untamed wilderness of Thera, a newly colonized planet on the fringes of human-explored space, Commander Jake Carter patrolled the periphery. The landscape was rugged, marked by jagged mountains and dense forests, with an atmosphere just breathable enough to forego a helmet, but not without its challenges. Jake's mission was routine. Ensure that the perimeter sensors placed around the human settlement were functioning and clear of any local fauna disruptions. The silence of the evening was shattered by a shrieking sound slicing through the sky. Jake, startled, looked up to see a bright object hurtling toward the ground. He raced toward his all-terrain vehicle, the roar of its engine cutting through the quiet as he sped towards the impact site. Upon arrival, Jake found a small craft, unlike anything he'd seen before. It was sleek and silver, clearly designed for stealth and speed, but now mangled and smoldering from its rough landing. Cautiously approaching, he scanned the surroundings for any immediate danger. The area seemed clear. The only sounds were the crackling of the burning debris and his own heavy breathing. He peered into the wreckage and saw movement. Inside, an alien girl, with luminescent skin that shimmered in the light of her damaged craft, struggled against her harness. Her features were delicate, almost ethereal, but her expression was one of pain and fear. Jake acted without hesitation, tearing away the debris to free her. As he reached to unclip her harness, she flinched, her bright violet eyes widening at the sight of a human. "It's okay. I'm here to help," Jake said, keeping his voice calm, though she likely didn't understand him. Once freed, he carefully lifted her out of the wreckage, noting the gravity of her injuries. She was light, her body frail compared to his, and she clung to him, her breath shallow and rapid. As he laid her down on a clearer patch of ground to assess her injuries, the environment around them began to stir. The crash had attracted attention. Shadowy figures moved between the trees, their forms just barely discernible. Jake knew these creatures, local predators, drawn by noise and possible prey. He drew his weapon, standing protectively over the alien girl. The creatures edged closer, their eyes glinting in the twilight. Jake fired warning shots, the loud cracks echoing through the woods. The predators hesitated, but their encroachment continued. Knowing he couldn't fend them off and protect the girl for long, Jake made a decision. He activated his communicator. "This is Commander Carter. I need immediate extraction at my location. I have a civilian, non-human, critical condition. Be advised, we have hostile wildlife on approach." The reply was swift. "Copy, Commander. Extraction team en route, ETA 5 minutes. Hold your position." 5 minutes felt like an eternity as the creatures began their assault. Jake fought with precision, each shot calculated to maximize effect while conserving ammunition. The girl watched him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and awe. As the sound of approaching rotors filled the air, the creatures retreated back into the darkness of the forest. Jake breathed a sigh of relief as the rescue team landed, medics rushing to attend to the alien girl. As they prepared her for transport, she reached out, touching Jake's hand lightly. Her touch was cool, almost tingling, and for a moment, their eyes met. There was no fear in hers now, just a silent gratitude that seemed to bridge the gap between their worlds. The medics loaded her onto the craft, and Jake climbed in beside her. As the extraction craft lifted off, leaving the wild, untamed darkness of Thera below, Jake looked at the alien girl. Her chest rose and fell evenly now, under the care of the medics. He turned away, looking out the window at the receding crash site, knowing that this mission was far from any routine he had known. This was just the beginning. After a brief flight that carved through the twilight sky of Thera, the extraction craft touched down gently at a remote outpost used as a forward operating base by human forces. The outpost was small, a collection of prefabricated modules connected by covered walkways, designed to withstand the planet's harsh conditions. Here, away from the main settlement, they would have the space and privacy needed for the alien girl, Lyria, as she had communicated through faint telepathic whispers, to recover without causing immediate alarm among the colony's populace. Jake stayed close as the medics transported Lyria to the infirmary. The medical team was thorough, their curiosity professionally masked by a veneer of detached concern as they tended to her injuries. They cleaned and dressed her wounds, administered pain relief, and monitored her vitals, which, despite their alien nature, appeared stable. Once the medical team finished their preliminary care and left to give her rest, Jake remained, seated beside her bed in the dimly lit room. The silence was punctuated only by the soft hum of medical equipment and the distant murmur of the outpost's night shift beginning their rounds. As he watched her, Lyria's eyelids fluttered open, her gaze fixing on him with an intensity that made the air around them feel charged. "You're safe here," Jake said softly, unsure she could understand him. "We're at a human outpost. You can heal here." Lyria stared at him for a moment before her hand slightly raised toward her temple, and a soft voice filled his mind. "Thank you, Jake." Her telepathic speech was weak, but clear, the use of his name surprising him. "You know my name?" he asked aloud, his voice a mix of surprise and intrigue. "I heard your thoughts earlier," she replied telepathically, her voice gaining strength. "It's easier for me to communicate this way." As the night progressed, they shared thoughts and words. Lyria's ability allowed her to pick up English quickly, which facilitated a deeper exchange between them. Jake learned that Lyria was from a planet called Alicia, which had been torn apart by civil war. Her people were mostly peaceful, but factions vying for power had destabilized the region around her home. She had fled to avoid capture by one such faction, which sought to exploit her innate abilities for their gain. In turn, Jake shared about Earth and the human colonies spread across the stars. He spoke of his own background, a military man turned explorer and guardian of new worlds. As they talked, the barrier of strangeness that might have widened the gap between their species seemed to melt away, replaced by a budding sense of trust and mutual respect. Their bonding was interrupted by a sudden alert from the outpost's perimeter defense system. Jake stood abruptly, his hand instinctively going to the sidearm at his belt. "Stay here. I need to check what's going on." He left Lyria in the infirmary, stepping quickly through the metal corridors to the command center. The night was dark, and the wind howled against the outer walls, a reminder of the planet's untamed nature. At the command center, the officer on duty pointed to the surveillance monitors. "We've detected movement, large, possibly hostile, closing in on the east sector. Could be those predators again, or something worse." "Understood," Jake replied, his mind racing. "I'm going out there. Keep an eye on everything, and let me know if more show up." Armed and cautious, Jake exited the outpost into the cold night. The environmental lights cast long shadows on the ground as he made his way towards the east sector. His heart raced, not just from the potential danger of the mission, but from leaving Lyria behind. He had stirred something in him, a protective instinct mixed with a deeper, uncharted feeling. As he approached the designated area, he found signs of disturbance: upturned soil, broken branches, and a distinct, unfamiliar scent in the air. He readied his weapon, aware that he was not just defending the outpost, but also the fragile new bond he had formed with the alien girl waiting for his return. Jake scanned the environment with his weapon ready, every sense on high alert. The strange scent grew stronger, a musky, metallic odor that didn't belong to any of the local fauna he knew. The soft crack of a twig snapped him to attention, and he crouched low, moving towards a cluster of dense foliage. As he peered through the underbrush, he caught sight of multiple figures, silhouettes that moved with purpose and intelligence. They weren't the mindless predators he had fought off during the rescue. These were hunters, and from the looks of it, they were not of this world. He slowly retreated, keeping his movements quiet as he headed back to the outpost. The outpost defense capabilities were decent, but against a potentially armed and intelligent threat, he needed a better stronghold. Remembering an abandoned outpost he had explored on earlier patrols, he decided it would serve as a more secure location to make a stand. It was defensible and had residual operational systems that could be brought back online with some work. Upon returning to the medical bay, Jake found Lyria awake and sitting up. He explained the situation quickly, urgency clear in his tone. We need to move to a more secure location. I know a place, but we need to leave now. Lyria nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. Her face was pale but determined as she rose from the bed with his help. Together, they gathered minimal supplies, medical kits, a portable power generator, some rations, and weaponry. Jake led the way, and Lyria followed closely, her steps surprisingly steady given her condition. The journey to the abandoned outpost was tense and silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves and distant howls that pierced the night. Jake's eyes constantly darted around, and Lyria's senses, sharpened by her natural instincts, aided in detecting any disturbances. They reached the outpost just as the early signs of dawn began to color the horizon. The outpost was a relic, partially reclaimed by the surrounding wilderness, but its walls were intact and the doors sealed. Jake used his clearance code to open the heavy doors, and they quickly went inside. He set about reactivating the outpost defense systems and power grid, while Lyria used her telepathic abilities to scan for any approaching threats. As the sun rose, casting light over the decrepit facility, the systems hummed to life one by one. Screens flickered on, and automated defense turrets recalibrated, scanning the perimeter. They were not alone. Lyria's face tensed as she felt the minds of their pursuers, cold, calculating, and closing in. "They are near," she whispered, her voice carrying a tremor. Jake looked out through one of the reinforced windows. "Let's prepare for a fight, then. We'll hold them off as long as we can." Together, they set traps around the perimeter and took up positions. Lyria, despite her frail appearance, showed a keen understanding of tactical positioning, suggesting points of cover and areas of vulnerability. Jake was impressed by her acumen, feeling a renewed sense of partnership. The first wave of attackers came with the mid-morning sun, a group of heavily armored beings wielding energy-based weapons. They approached cautiously, likely unaware of the outpost's operational status. As they neared the first set of traps, explosions shook the ground, throwing several of the attackers off their feet. Jake and Lyria used the momentary chaos to open fire. The outpost defense turrets whirred into action, assisting them in cutting down the first wave. However, Jake knew this would only be the beginning. The attackers regrouped quickly, more careful now, using strategic cover and returning fire with precision. The battle raged through the day, each wave testing their defenses further. Between assaults, Jake and Lyria worked together to patch up any breaches and tend to each other's minor wounds. Their conversation was sparse, focused, but beneath the surface, a bond of mutual respect and reliance was forming, strengthened by the crucible of conflict. As dusk approached, the attack showed no sign of stopping, but Jake and Lyria were prepared to defend their refuge to the last. Their partnership had grown into a formidable force, and though the future was uncertain, they were ready to face whatever came next together. The night fell like a curtain, dark and suffocating, as the attacks temporarily subsided. Jake and Lyria, exhausted yet vigilant, used this respite to fortify their makeshift stronghold further. They reloaded their weapons, reset the traps, and patched the outpost's minor damages. Amid the chaos, a strange calm settled over the pair, a testament to the trust and camaraderie they had built under fire. As they worked, Lyria paused, her expression shifting, as if she was deciding whether to disclose something significant. Jake noticed the change and stopped, his eyes meeting hers. "What is it? You can tell me, Lyria." Lyria looked away momentarily, gathering her thoughts. Finally, she turned back to Jake, her eyes clear and resolute. "There is more at stake here than just my safety," she began, her voice a soft telepathic echo in his mind. "I possess information, secrets about my people and the technology we developed, secrets that could change the balance of power in the universe." Jake listened intently, his earlier suspicions about her importance confirming. "Is that why those hunters are after you?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "Among my people, I was a keeper a guardian of ancient knowledge. The faction that hunts me, they seek to exploit this knowledge to dominate others, not just on Alicia but across the stars. The weight of her words hung heavily between them. Jake understood the gravity of the situation. It was bigger than he had initially realized. "We need to get this information to the right hands," he said decisively. "The human coalition needs to know about this." Lyria nodded. "I trust you, Jake, but we need to be careful. The knowledge I carry, it's dangerous. It could be as destructive as it is beneficial if misused." The conversation was interrupted by a low hum outside the outpost. They both tensed, preparing for another assault. However, minutes passed and no attack came. Instead, the hum grew louder and a large, shadowy figure appeared at the edge of the clearing. It was a creature unlike any Jake had seen before, a massive bioluminescent being, its body pulsating with light. Lyria gasped, a sound that echoed in Jake's mind. "That's not one of the hunters. It's a guardian, a protector of sacred sites on my planet. It must have followed me here. Why would it follow you all this way?" Jake asked, his curiosity piqued. "It must sense the danger to the knowledge I carry. Guardians are drawn to protect the keepers," she explained. Her voice held a mixture of awe and fear. As they watched, the guardian approached the outpost, its movements deliberate and non-threatening. Lyria stepped forward, her body language open. She communicated with the creature, a soft series of mental pulses that Jake could sense but not understand. After a moment, Lyria turned back to Jake. "It will help us defend this place. It has abilities, powers that can protect us from the hunters." Relieved yet still apprehensive, Jake nodded. "We could use all the help we can get." The following days turned into a blur of attacks and defenses, each wave orchestrated by the hunters, growing more desperate and dangerous. The Guardian proved to be a formidable ally, its powers manipulating the natural energy of the planet to create barriers and disturbances that confused and slowed their attackers. During moments of calm, Lyria taught Jake more about her world and the vast knowledge she was sworn to protect. She showed him holographic images of Alicia with its soaring architecture and vibrant landscapes, and explained the principles of her people's technology, advances in energy, medicine, and more. Jake, in turn, shared stories of Earth, of human struggles and triumphs. He spoke of the wars they had fought, the peace they sought, and the ongoing quest to find their place among the stars. Their exchanges deepened their connection, each finding solace and strength in the other's tales. As they prepared for what they hoped would be the final assault, Jake looked at Lyria, her face illuminated by the glow of the Guardian outside. He realized how much he had come to care for her, not just as a comrade, but as someone far more significant. Together, they stood ready to face whatever came next, their bond a beacon in the dark. After repelling another fierce wave of attackers, Jake and Lyria found themselves with a rare moment of quiet. The Guardian's presence had discouraged the hunters from launching immediate further assaults, providing them an unexpected but welcome reprieve. Exhausted but alert, they took advantage of the lull to step outside the confines of the outpost, needing to feel something other than the cold, artificial air that circulated within. The night sky on Thera was a tapestry of alien constellations, unfamiliar and mesmerizing. As they looked up, Lyria pointed to various clusters and formations, naming them as they appeared from her world's perspective, a reminder of the vast distance she had traveled and the isolation she must have felt. "Back on Alicia, my father used to teach me about the stars," Lyria shared, her telepathic voice soft with nostalgia. "He said they were the eyes of the universe, watching over us, guiding us." Jake listened, his gaze shifting from the stars back to her. "My mom used to say something similar. After she passed, looking up at the night sky made me feel like she was still there, somehow." The sharing of personal memories created a bridge between their two worlds, making the vastness around them seem a bit smaller, more intimate. They sat down on the cold ground, the Guardian looming silently nearby, a silent sentinel in the darkness. As they talked, the conversation naturally deepened, turning to their fears and hopes. Lyria spoke of her worries about her people, the war tearing her world apart, and her uncertainty about the future. Jake talked about his life as a soldier and now a protector, the weight of constant vigilance, and his longing for a peace that seemed increasingly elusive. I used to think coming out here to the frontier would simplify things, just me against the wild. But it's more complicated than that, Jake confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. There are always new challenges, new responsibilities. Lyria reached out, her hand hesitating in the air before gently resting on his. You carry your burdens with strength, Jake. I see that in you. It's why I trust you. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. In that moment, under the alien sky, with the cool breeze whispering through the trees and the quiet sounds of the night playing a low symphony, Lyria leaned closer. Her lips met his in a gentle, tentative kiss. A kiss that spoke of gratitude, of shared struggles, and burgeoning feelings too profound to articulate in words alone. The kiss broke, leaving them both slightly breathless, their faces lit by the soft glow of the stars and the luminescence of the Guardian. I didn't expect that, Jake stammered, surprised by his own reaction to her closeness. Nor did I, Lyria replied, her mental voice a blend of warmth and confusion. But I don't regret it. Their moment of peace was abruptly shattered as the outpost's alarms blared into the night. They sprang to their feet, the tranquility of the moment replaced by the rush of adrenaline. As they ran back to the command center, Jake felt a new resolve firming within him. Whatever came next, he was ready to face it, not just for duty's sake, but for something much more personal. Inside the command center, the screen showed a new threat, drones sleek and deadly, closing in fast from the sky. They're adapting, using tech we haven't seen yet, Jake noted as he assessed the situation. The drones were fast, equipped with high-powered lasers, and their movements were coordinated, suggesting advanced AI. With quick, decisive actions, they prepared their defenses. Lyria suggested using the outpost's old EMP devices, relics from earlier military conflicts. Together, they set up the devices, recalibrating them to disrupt the drones' flight patterns. As the drones approached, Jake activated the EMPs. The sky lit up as the devices unleashed a pulse of electromagnetic energy, sending several drones crashing to the ground. But more were coming, adapting to the countermeasures. Back to back, Jake and Lyria fought, using every resource at their disposal. Each wave they repelled strengthened their bond, their partnership evolving into a powerful alliance under the starlit sky of Thera. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a pale light on the battered landscape of Thera, Jake and Lyria prepared for what they hoped would be the last confrontation. The previous night's battle had left them both weary but resolute, their spirits bolstered by the connection they had forged under fire and stars. The human colony was close, a beacon of civilization on this wild frontier, and the final battleground where the fate of Lyria and her invaluable knowledge would be decided. They knew the hunters would not relent until they had captured Lyria or destroyed her, and the stakes were higher than ever with the introduction of advanced technology into the fray. As they approached the colony, the air filled with tension and the scent of impending conflict. The colony's defenses were robust, but the presence of alien technology among the attackers added a layer of unpredictability that had everyone on edge. Jake and Lyria joined the colony's defense forces, quickly briefing the commanding officers on the capabilities of the hunters and the strategic use of EMPs that had proven effective so far. The defenders rallied, inspired by Jake's leadership and Lyria's bravery. The battle began with the rising sun as a backdrop, casting long shadows across the field. The hunters launched a full-scale assault, both on the ground and the air, their drones swarming the defenses in a coordinated attack. The air crackled with energy as lasers met kinetic barriers and explosions rocked the battlefield. Amidst the chaos, Jake and Lyria moved with purpose. Lyria, using her telepathic abilities, coordinated the colony's defenses, predicting the hunters' moves and creating openings for counterattacks. Jake was everywhere at once, issuing commands, bolstering weak points, and taking down drones with precise shots. The turning point came when Lyria sensed a massive energy build up from the enemy's main battalion, indicating they were preparing to deploy a weapon that could potentially obliterate the colony's defenses. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Jake and Lyria formulated a desperate plan. They would use the last of the EMPs to disrupt the weapon's deployment, buying the colony forces enough time to launch a counteroffensive. With no time to spare, Jake and Lyria, accompanied by a small team, infiltrated the enemy lines, dodging blasts and debris. As they reached the designated point, Lyria set the EMP while Jake provided cover. The moment felt suspended in time, every second stretching infinitely as they awaited the right moment. Finally, Lyria nodded at Jake, and he triggered the EMP. A wave of electromagnetic energy surged through the battlefield, causing the enemy's weapon to malfunction and backfire, resulting in a massive explosion within their ranks. The hunters, disoriented and crippled by the loss of their primary weapon, faltered. Seizing the opportunity, the colony's forces launched their counteroffensive, pushing the hunters back with renewed vigor. The battle raged on, but the tide had turned decisively in their favor. As the last of the hunters retreated, a cheer erupted from the human forces, a sound of victory and relief that echoed across the battlefield. In the aftermath, as the colony began to recover and rebuild, Jake and Lyria stood side by side, looking out over the scarred landscape. They had saved the colony and protected the secrets that Lyria held, ensuring that her knowledge would be used for the benefit of all, not the domination by a few. "I don't know what happens next," Jake admitted, turning to Lyria. "But whatever it is, we'll face it together." Lyria smiled, her eyes reflecting a mix of weariness and hope. "Together," she agreed, her voice both in his mind and in the air, a testament to their shared future. As they turned to join the others, their hands found each other's, fingers intertwining naturally. They had started as strangers from different worlds, brought together by conflict and necessity. But now, as they walked back to the colony, they did so not just as allies, but as partners, their bond forged in battle and sealed under the watchful eyes of the universe. The stars above, once so foreign to Lyria, now shone on them both, a symbol of their united path forward.